everyone, welcome back to another quick tips video. Today we're going to be talking about planning. So it's not planning your structure or your essay outline, that's later, but we're going to talk about how you can effectively plan your time. So for a lot of you, this will be the first time you've done a project that lasted months and months. This EE process will take you kind of 7 to 10 months usually, and it's also probably the first time you've been left largely independent in how you do that. So you really only have two key deadlines for the extended essay. You have your your first draft deadline and your final deadline. And aside from that, it's kind of free reign. But what that means is it's really easy, even for the most organized and efficient people, to fall behind, because you prioritize the immediate needs, and sometimes the EE doesn't fit into that immediate need because you don't have a teacher in a classroom saying it's due today. Okay? So with that in mind, the key thing is to have a plan. It can be short plan, long plan, but to have some kind of plan, and preferably one that's got a bit of detail to it. The other thing though is you can't just have a plan. You also need a way to hold yourself accountable to the plan, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that later in this video. So let's get started. It's super easy. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify the steps. What are the tasks, subtasks, actions you need to take to complete your essay? So you might start with some quite big steps. Like you might start with something really simple like brainstorm ideas, collect research, outline essay, draft, final. 5 steps. Now, that's fine. It's a good starting point. But it's not going to be helpful in terms of really close time management. So what I recommend is once you've got kind of a big general list, it's time to start creating some subtasks. So it's time to start thinking, okay, well, are there steps in my research collection process? So perhaps I could spend a week collecting information about this key idea and another week collecting information about this key idea. Or alternatively, you might break it down so that you do your secondary research round 1 over 2 weeks. You look through that data, you find the key information you thought you were looking for, you do a review of what you've collected, and then you do a round 2 research space, okay? So just breaking down those subtasks. The same is true when you get to the essay. You might decide to create an outline, and then you might have a process of drafting a paragraph, reviewing your quotes, inserting your references, and paragraph 2, okay? Or you might do it by sections. And the reason we want to do this is because we want to make every task in your plan manageable. If you've got a task that says write draft for a 4,000 word essay, and that task is due in a month and a half, you're going to probably look at that every day and go, write draft. It's a big task. And the month is going to creep by until suddenly it's a big task and a short time limit. You don't want to be in that space. So break all your tasks down as small as you can, okay? And put them all into a list. Once you've generated your list of tasks, it's time to put them roughly in the order that they will happen. Now, you may have created them in that order, you're sort of thinking through, but just in case they're all over the place, let's get that list top to bottom, first task to last task. At this point, if you're the kind of person who just likes tick box listing, you can stop. You've got a list, it's good to go. The only other thing you might want to think about though is the when. Not just the what, but when are you going to do it? Tasks are great, but tasks can accumulate really, really easily if we don't think about when we're going to leave time for them. Alright? So instead of just having a tick box list, I recommend creating a table or some other kind of planning document like a Gantt chart in order to give you the best and most clear plan possible that you can do by hand, digitally, stick it on your wall, use post-it notes, to help you do that. So I'm going to run through a Gantt chart really quickly with you, just in case you've never seen one before. Okay, so what you're looking at on your screen now is a Gantt chart using a Google Doc. Now, you could do this using Sheets. It possibly is more efficient doing it using Sheets, but some people find spreadsheets daunting and a bit overwhelming in terms of data. So I think probably a better option is sometimes just to have a simple Google Doc or to do it manually, okay? And what you're going to do is all those tasks that we talked about before, you're going to add them into your actions list in the order that you've come up with them. Now, my page is fixed length, but yours can be as long or as short as you need it to be, okay? And I've put a couple of example ideas in, so outline my basic ideas, some preliminary research, I've put in first reflection, and that's a good point. Make sure in your actions you don't just include the tasks you've created, but you've also included the tasks that have deadlines, like reflections, or your draft, or final submission. Make sure they all go in, because they're going to be the first dates you enter. Now, across the top, what we want to do is we want to set a time frame. Now, my time frame that I've used on this one is in weeks. You can do this with a month, but a month is quite a big chunk of time. So when you're trying to break down your activities, you end up with quite a bit squashed into a month, and then it becomes a bit vague about what you're going to do when. So I prefer a weekly split on my Gantt charts, and you could put in dates if that makes you feel clearer. I just use term numbers for the weeks. This one's obviously not our current term, and obviously there are going to be some variations, but basically, how many weeks do I have between now and the end of the extended essay process? That's what this space needs to allow for. Everything from now till November. Now, again, this is where a spreadsheet might be a little bit more efficient, but however it works for you is completely fine. Now, this is the important part. The first thing you're going to put into this, after you've got your list and you've got your time frame, is your key date. So you know that you have your draft due the first week back after the summer. You go to draft. Let's say it's down here on my document. Woo. And I don't know why that's searching. Yeah. We'll pretend I can type. So I put draft into my document. There's a bit of a lag here. And then I'm going to come to the end of my summer, come to week 1. And this box, I'm just going to fill it in. I'm going to fill it in with a colour. So now I can see that my draft has to come in here. Now, this is important because everything I have to do in this list before the draft now has to happen within that week window. So you've got a visual in front of you of exactly how much time you've got available and how much you need to get done within that time frame. Obviously, the other important date you're going to put in is your final deadline. I won't do that now because this screen's not working very well, but add that deadline in as well so that you can also plan in what you're going to do in that draft review phase between submitting the first draft and submitting the final essay. Now, everything else has to be plugged in. So you've got all your actions or tasks here. You need to think about which tasks can be done together and which tasks have to wait. So for example, I probably can't start my primary research until I've got an outline of my ideas. That would be like saying start your research before you pick a question. A bit hard to do. So it's really important that you think, can I do this task together? So it's got some overlap. So for example, I can do my first reflection while I'm still conducting research. My reflection isn't dependent on me knowing everything about my essay. So there can be weeks with overlaps, like you can see on the screen here, or there can be weeks that are staggered. The goal is to think realistically about your time. Now, I've told you to put in your actions and tasks as well as the real deadlines, but it might also be worth considering blocking out any times when you know you won't be able to work. For example, do you know that there's a summer thing happening? Now, obviously this year, knowing that's a bit harder, but any events or things you know about that might interfere with your workflow, even down to having other study obligations, like internal assessment deadlines, block out those weeks so you can't use them. because planning to do something key in a week that's not available just means you'll fall behind on your own time plan, and that's not helpful for anyone, okay? So things to think about: the order of your tasks. Can they overlap? Okay. How much time do you have from start to finish? And are there any weeks in the spread that you cannot use or that you might be less productive? Okay. Weeks when you've got major work, family commitments, etc. At this point, you've now got a plan from day one right up to submission. But the plan's only half the battle. The more important part of the battle is going to be finding a way to hold yourself accountable. So accountability is going to be a key part of your planning process, because having the plan is great, but if you don't feel the need to follow the plan, you've wasted your time creating it. Now, with no classroom teacher to hold you accountable, you're going to have to find other ways. So a few ways you can do this. 1, schedule key check-in meetings with your supervisor. These do not have to be weekly. Let me emphasize that. But maybe set them for those times when you had a key task you wanted to finish. So for example, you wanted to collect the bulk of your research by May 15th. Set a check-in date for then, so that not only does your supervisor have an expectation of you, but you've got an incentive to get through that task, okay? The other way that you can hold yourself accountable, pick a buddy. Every grade 11 student is doing an extended essay, and most of you, if not all of you, I would assume, would prefer to stay on top of the work. Nobody wants to fall behind. So pick a buddy. You can both create your own independent timeline, but then have check-ins with each other. Hold each other accountable for the work that you're doing. Have you done it? Have you not? You can create a penalty system if you want to. How you do that is up to you. The last probably key way you can do it at the moment, particularly while we're all online, is you could ask a parent. I know, heaven forbid. But asking someone at home to be the one to say, have you done this yet? It really does work. Okay, so you could put your Gantt chart, your time plan, on the fridge or up somewhere where the family can see it, so that people are constantly checking with you, have you done your EE work? Now, I don't want to rattle on anymore, but I'm hoping this has helped you to at least get a little bit of an idea of how you can effectively plan for your time so that you can make the most of your time and not find yourself behind when those key deadlines hit. I'll leave a link to my Gantt chart in the comment space below, and if you have any questions, please get in touch. Bye!